We are back on It's Always Game Day in Cincinnati. It is the first post-game regular season podcast of the season. Lindsay Patterson, Mike Santagata. Mike, I do not know where to start with the team. There's very few positives after this game versus the Patriots. I did have a little bit of a bad feeling going into it. I mentioned on the podcast, I said you cannot overlook the Patriots. This team struggles when it comes to those week 1, week 2 starts, and it's really getting kind of old on both sides of the ball. But let's start with the offense because that's going to be the one that I feel like we've spent a lot of time talking about outside of Jamar Chase. Is he going to play? Isn't he going to play? Obviously, the T. Higgins. I expected him to play when we recorded last week. He did not play, the hamstring injury. That's something to monitor over the next few weeks. But Joe Burrow, this offensive line, the weapons that he did have available, what is your reaction?
Okay, so my first reaction is, why do we do this every year? It's just like
Yeah.
come on, man. Really? This is all right. It happens again. Slow start kills the team. And on offense, it was surprising that to me a little bit that it felt like they just went out there and weren't prepared for the Patriots to get into a bunch of cover two. And it's like, we are doing this for the third year in a row. Why does it take for in-season adjustments to make these changes? And they do eventually make the changes. I think that this staff has been one of the best staffs at making in-season changes, but they are probably the worst staff at anticipating what defenses are going to throw at them and making those changes within the first game, within the first 2 games, 1-10 in the first 2 weeks in Zach Taylor's career. And I understand some of those were Andy Dalton years, but look,
But still.
the past six games, all pretty winnable. This one reminded me a lot of that Steelers one without turnovers from the offense as much. Just an abysmal offensive performance, a team that didn't have any semblance of an offense, but it was better than what the other team put out there. I think I was mostly disappointed that it took so long for them to get to Eric All and Drew Sample 12 personnel. That's what they got to in some pistol sets at the very end of that final drive where they scored the touchdown, not the final drive where they punted, and we'll probably talk about that. But when they got to that, they ran I guess you'd call it YG counter, just because the kick comes first. Eric All is playing the Y or the F, whatever you want to call that. He comes in motion, kicks the end, guard wraps around, went for a big gain. And then the very next play, they ran the exact same play. Eric All actually whiffs on the block entirely. Doesn't matter because the guy went outside, got enough of a kick. Zach Moss is able to score. Drew Sample is pancaking a dude in the end zone. And it was too late because by the time they got the ball back after that, they couldn't run the ball anymore. There wasn't enough time. So that was really frustrating that it took so long to get there. Why are you pulling Mike Gesicki off the field for Tanner Hudson? Because they're the same player, except Hudson's worse. I struggle to see, maybe there's something I'm not figuring out. I struggle to see why Hudson would take his spot on a critical third down unless Gesicki felt like he hurt something or he was tired. That was a bizarre personnel decision. And then, yeah, he's holding that ball like Shady McCoy, one hand open, not tucked.
For the end zone.
You talk about 4 points of contact. That man had barely 1 point of contact as he was trying to cross in the end zone, and it got stripped. I heard that his drop came from a tip ball, so like you can't put all the blame on him, but it just felt like anytime he was out there, it was not great. And I understand he got to the end zone, but to me, tight end 4 at the very least now. Like, All should be playing more than him, and I don't understand why you pulled Gesicki off the field for him, because I feel like Gesicki's the better version of him. Gesicki almost came down with that touchdown grab, felt like he was fine in terms of everything else. I don't know. That was all very frustrating. The first 3 drives being 3 and outs, very frustrating. And the one part, I haven't seen a ton of people talk about it. I feel like the offensive line got a ton of blame. It actually felt to me like Burrow was protected and would run into his own guys, causing some of that. I saw pressure. I am not absolving the offensive line of blame. I saw Josh Uche beat Trent Brown around the arc and force the sack. Was that on the third? That was on a third down to bring up a fourth down. I saw plenty, and Keon White was winning as well. I saw pressures from the offensive line, but I also remember at least a handful of plays where Burrow looked, read one, read two, put his eyes down, ran into his offensive lineman. And
Yeah.
that can't happen because his offensive line's all right, but they're not all stars. I don't know if that was like a Burrow isn't used to having a decent offensive line that can protect him that long. But to me, when I watched that, I thought, ooh, it feels like Burrow isn't yet comfortable. And that's something to watch. It also felt like, I don't know, guys run off the screen when you're watching TV, but they didn't push the ball down the field. And why is that? I assume, and I saw plenty of what looked like cover two shells, soft shells, and they didn't try to run them out of it other than from some 11 personnel stuff. We need to get heavy, need to play 12 and get a little more condensed to be able to run that stuff. But I feel like you could still take shots because I want them to wad things up and just take a deep shot to Jamar Chase, run a double post, run something, because they've got to be one of the only teams that has this short of an area that they throw to. And it's not like other teams don't face this. It's why Mahomes isn't launching bombs all over the field anymore, but he's hitting the intermediate area.
Yeah.
And I don't understand. They're not attacking it. They used to run dagger all the time against these cover two looks. And then Burrow threw one pick on it against the Ravens, and it felt like it got scrapped from the playbook. I don't know how I feel about that. I would have liked to see them test the coverage down the field. There was some bizarre play calling. There was some bizarre quarterback play. It felt like they weren't prepared to get to where they needed to go. I think there's a lot to blame on this offense. If you're looking for the positives, it's basically that Eric All and Drew Sample 12 personnel finish for a touchdown. And you can cope your way into saying, like, well, they should have had another touchdown.
No, it doesn't.
It didn't work for me.
Yeah, that doesn't work for me. I don't feel any better to say, oh, if Hudson doesn't fumble it or if Charlie Jones doesn't fumble it, they win the game. I don't feel that way because of the performance that I watched. If it would have been a closer game and maybe those mistakes happen, and I get it, when you fumble the ball, it's really hard to win the game when you do it twice. And in areas that you're at a disadvantage, you were going to score a touchdown. They were able to go down the field to score a touchdown when they lost the fumble to Hudson. And then obviously they get 3 points off the Charlie Jones fumble. So there's just a lot of ways to look at this game. And I can't even get into thinking about the rest of the season after watching that performance. I agree with you. Joe Burrow, we can criticize. I get it. He's coming back from a major injury recovery with his wrist injury. But at the same time, and maybe it was the defense that they were playing, but you've got to make those adjustments in game, at least in the second half. It just felt like they were not going downfield at all. They've had games where T. Higgins wasn't on the field, plenty over the last few years, and even a limited Jamar Chase. And I just didn't feel confident in the weapons. And I don't even blame the run game or anything like that. I really just looked at this offense and said, nobody's getting open. And why are you throwing it 4 yards when you need 6 for the first down?
Multiple. Oh, man. The one play where they motion Jamar, you get a man indicator. You're not getting very many snaps of cover one man. You're not getting those. And they motion him over and run him on a flat route. I was like, what a waste. Mm-hmm. What a waste, because that is your opportunity to take the deep shot. You have to take those as deep shots. I don't care if he's in the slot, he's outside, he's in motion. If I see the man indicator when he's in motion, I'm probably checking to just run either a go or a slot fade. Let's just see if that guy can keep up with you, because we are about to pay you the most money that any wide receiver has ever gotten. The quarterback is at the time the highest paid quarterback. They should be able to connect on an opportunity like that's explosive opportunities 101. I mean, that's what they got to all the time in 2021. Defense has changed, but when they get to those looks, you can't get stuck in running your two high beaters, your cover two beaters. And your cover two beaters can't be stick flat on when you need 5 yards. It can't be a flat screen when you need 3 yards on 4th down. They didn't even have a numbers advantage on that play. No. They had Jamar Chase blocking. Like, that's your gotta have it play, is to run a flat screen. I don't know. Maybe Burrow checks into it because he thinks he's getting 0. He didn't get zeroed. Threw that ball out there. There's no shot that Yoshivasa was going to get that.
There's a lot that
and the punt. The punt. Why would you punt there? Why did they punt on 4th and 5? You paid this quarterback billions, and you're going to punt on 4th and 5?
No, I agree.
You're going to lose the game.
And they did. and they lost the game. And it's just so unfortunate because you look, the Patriots put up 16, and this team couldn't put up more than that. You allowed them to have 16 points. I get it, the mistakes happened, and that put them in great position to put points on the board. But at the same time, this team, they were talked about as being a Super Bowl contender, a team that could win one of the hardest divisions in football. And today, you couldn't beat a team that might be picking top 5 in the NFL draft, and it looked pitiful. Your quarterback finally got his full training camp in. I get the Jamar Chase stuff is frustrating. And you know what? Joe Burrow said it earlier in the week. It's a distraction, and I truly believe it's a distraction with this team. Not an excuse for why they played the way they did, because there's a lot of things to look at offensively. You can look at the play calling. You can look at Zach Taylor. You can look at Joe Burrow, the quarterback, the one who you want to trust with 2 minutes to go is going to go down the field and be able to put up a game-winning drive and get it in the end zone. And offensively, it was overall disappointing. We'll get to defense in just a moment, but is there anything else you want to say about the offense? And let me ask you this, because I don't want to get too far into it, because I know we're going to have a podcast on Tuesday and we'll talk a little more about this game when you watch the tape. Do you think this team could change their ways a little bit on how they think about these extensions and just ride this one out to get it done this week?
Oh, I have no idea. I would guess no, but I don't know. My last thoughts on the offense are: 1, yes, this is super frustrating to watch. 2, I think by October it'll be very good. It's so frustrating. I know it's so frustrating that they have the potential, they could do this, and whether or not T. Higgins is out there, I assume this offense I should just assume the offense is going to be bad. I should just assume it's going to be bad until week 5, because then they'll stop doing dumb things. They'll figure out their best usage. Like I said, they're one of the best teams at figuring things out in season, later in the season, after the first 4 weeks. The first 4 weeks is basically their preseason. I think we're at the point of, what is the point of these soft training camps, soft preseasons, to start slow, but you're going to keep guys healthy, but everybody's hurt. T. Higgins is hurt. Your first round pick is hurt. Your second round pick is hurt. Your third round pick is hurt. Your other third round pick can't see the field. Maybe they should increase intensity in these preseasons, in these in the training camps, just less lackadaisical. They are one of the lightest teams when it comes to all this stuff. And you can look at that and be like, well, that's because they didn't keep people healthy this year.
No.
They went out there today and they didn't have their first round pick. They didn't have their second best receiver. It's just, how many guys are going to go down if you increase intensity, and maybe you can actually start fast? I saw a Patriots player. It was Jabril Peppers. He said nobody conditions and trains like the Patriots in the offseason. It sure looked like that.
It did look like
at least their defense versus this offense, that's what it looked like. And I would say their offense would probably look a little bit like that. We'll get to the Bengals defense, which I'm a little less optimistic about getting better. But
yeah. No, I agree. And the training camp stuff is not working. There's a bigger picture when you think about that. It could be guys getting more reps in a preseason game, but you're gonna have to get more intense. Sorry, I get it. You want to be cautious. You want to avoid injuries, but look what you just mentioned. Look at all the guys who are currently out right now. And it's not one of those. Yeah, if T. Higgins was on the field, they would have won the game. They should have been able to win the game with what they had.
Yeah.
They've done it before plenty of times, and vice versa if T. Higgins is on the sideline or if T. Higgins is playing and Jamar Chase is on the sideline. So it's just really frustrating. We can talk about this offense, and it does feel like deja vu of kind of that Steelers game, and then they pick it up when it's midseason, and you're like, man, it's easy to look back on that Patriots game week 1 when, you should have won at home and you played sloppy. So it's really frustrating, and it really just looks like it's going to be really hard to avoid a slow start. I don't feel like I'm overreacting when I talk about that, because let's go ahead and flip to the defensive side, just kind of recap our week 1 game versus the Patriots. The defensive line, I'm absolutely terrified. It was one of my biggest concerns, and even when we had our guest on last week, that I said, the Patriots can control this game if they just run the ball. They're going to be able to run the ball, because this defense is going to allow that big plays still happening with a lot of guys. And these are some veterans on the defensive side of the ball. And I agree with you. It didn't give me any encouragement that that's going to get better on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I wanted to look it up. So the New England Ramondre Stevenson, he only had a success rate of 36%. It felt worse because it felt so much worse. And I do remember there were plenty of plays that they did stop him, but everything you would worry about with this run defense showed up to me. The depth at defensive tackle, non-existent. They were getting pushed around. The starters, they didn't take advantage of the matchup like they could have. And then everything got summed up to me on the play that ended the game, pretty much. I mean, not the victory formation stuff, but when they went out there and they went to a run stop package. It was a even front 4-down look, which is a little different. They don't usually use that as a run stop package, but they're light on the defensive line this year. They pulled Trey Hendrickson off the field, moved Sam Hubbard to the opposite side, and put BJ Hill at the end there. BJ Hill got caved in 5 yards. And then there's still an opportunity to stop him, but Cam Taylor-Britt is trying to tackle him high, just uses arms, and Stevenson just runs through that. Stevenson's a good back. I was surprised that how many times he made the miss. And I know he's good. I just said that. But it just felt so sloppy from everybody on the defense. It felt like the front seven got pushed around. They made some stops here and there, but it felt like they got pushed around. And then the defensive backs, when the ball carrier came to them, they missed the tackle. Now, I felt like Gibson didn't really do anything, but when Stevenson was in there, I was worried. Gibson came out with negative expected points added. Stevenson did not. But yeah, that's very frustrating to watch. Just when they punted that ball back, I had no faith that they were going to be able to get that stop. Like, my hope was either just a tackle for a loss on like a good blitz or something, and then they can't convert. And when that didn't happen on first down, and then it didn't happen on second down, second down was the one that ended it, wasn't it? Yeah, it didn't happen on first down. I see second down happen. They're not blitzing, and that's fine. Like, I understand that you don't want to give up the explosive, but then you did anyway. You still give up the first. So it's frustrating. And then I didn't even think the coverage was particularly good. I didn't think the safety play looked that much better in terms of things that should be better. Just felt bad. And if that was a better offense passing the ball, I think it would have been worse. I know Brissett didn't have a big game, but that's because they wanted to run the ball, control the clock. I don't know what their time of possession is. It's weird that you can get the advanced stats, but you can't get the normal stats yet. But it felt pretty bad watching and trying to figure out, okay, well, can the defense get better? Like, yes, but they're going to be facing better offensive lines. They're going to be facing better run games and just overall better teams. So it misses me a little bit in terms of, well, can I expect the offense to get better? I don't particularly expect the defense to get better. 34-minute time possession compared to the 25, 26 of the Bengals, by the way, which is about what I expected when I looked it up.
And I get the offense put them in special teams, even put them in not ideal situations. But at the same time, I agree with you. I had zero confidence when they punted the ball back. And I get it. If the Bengals don't get the first down, the game was going to be over anyways. But
game was over on the punt.
I felt the game was over on the punt too. I truly did. Because I said, you know what? Let's just see what happens here. If you cannot get the first down, then you can't win this game. It's over. They're going to kick the field goal. The game is over. But at the same time, I truly do not have that confidence in this defense, and I haven't had the confidence in the defense for a couple years now. And it's one of those things that they'll get Chris Jenkins back, and what will Myles Murphy bring when he's able to return Week 5? There's still a lot of missing pieces, and there's still veterans who are on this squad on the defense side of the ball who aren't making those plays. And it really just felt like that overall. It really felt like this team. I don't want to say they overlooked the Patriots, but they just didn't. They didn't look prepared at all for this.
Yeah, I take that back to just being such a soft training camp and everything.
Yeah,
I don't think those guys were tackling much in training camp, and that shows up. They're missing tackles left and right. They're missing every single tackle. They make a couple of splash plays, which is nice. I didn't think the defense was. I didn't even think it was terrible. Like, I thought they did get some stops here and there, even when they got put in bad situations. But when it came to they have to get a stop here to get the ball back and win this game, I was like, oh, they're not doing that.
No, not at all.
I guess the Patriots trying to 100% run this ball and run the clock out. I didn't have any faith that they'd be able to do that. So when they punted that ball off, I was like, it might be it. And the thing is, they were so close to the end zone on that fourth down, and it sounds bizarre, but if you don't pick that up, they can't run the clock out because they'd have to get a touchdown or a field goal.
Yeah.
So even though they put you down 2 possessions or whatever, it still would also give you the opportunity to get the ball back. And then maybe you can onside kick it. Probably won't work, but I mean, it's not that much worse of a strategy because I just had no faith that this run defense would get the stop when they needed it. I didn't really put a lot of blame on Lou. It felt to me like players. It felt to me like guys weren't winning matchups they should win. It felt to me like guys weren't making tackles that they should make. And if I felt like he was getting out schemed, I remember against the Mike White, I remember thinking like this was on Lou. Like, why is he doing all this? He's doing all this very vanilla stuff when Mike White is just finding the easy answer to it. Like you're a spot drop here, he's going to hit the back underneath and they're going to run for 8 yards. Here, I didn't feel that way. It felt like Brissett got moved off his spot. And one thing that got frustrating more and more as the game went on, especially in the first half, I felt like, though, but each time it happened later, was Brissett just no contain whatsoever on him. Nobody had any contain because there was a little bit of pressure, whether it was Hendrickson coming around the end, whether I saw Rankins dump Mike Jordan on his head, and Brissett picked up a first down running around it. So where is anybody else? Where's the team defense in that aspect of you're getting the pressure, he's moving off his spot, but then he's making a play. He's turning negatives into positives because you're not playing good team defense there. Very frustrating. And yeah, we didn't even get to it much, but the Charlie Jones return man.
It's not the answer. He's not the answer.
I don't know. He returns one for a touchdown, and then how much grace does that give you for the rest of your career? Because you can't fumble back-to-back returns. One was a fumble, and then he ran for -4 on the next one, and that was
you put him in terrible field position, and it's one of those things where I don't feel confident when he's back there. They still put him back there again, and that's when he went -4. So I just do not understand that. You can look at special teams, and it's honestly the only optimistic side of things. The punting situation right at
and
this
the kick.
moment. Yeah, that's about it.
Plus.
And Evan McPherson, of course, he's, a silver lining. But overall, offensively and defensively, I do want to chalk it up to, hey, maybe it is the way that their training camp is. And this is really their first, almost like their 4th preseason game, but starters are going to be out there the whole entire game. You can't do that, though. You can't continue to do that. And it's just, I don't know. It's frustrating. And it really just kind of disappoints me for the rest of the week, to be honest.
I get being frustrated. I'm not at the point of making the sweeping takes that they need to fire Taylor and give up play calling. We do this song and dance every year.
We do.
I will be surprised if in October this team looks this bad. I think they just start abysmally slow. They need to ramp up their activity level early in the offseason, but we did this last year. We did this in 2022. We did this in 2021, where people get on their shows and they go, Zach Taylor's got to give up play calling. He has to. It can't get worse. And then it gets better. And then it's like, well, you don't hold anybody accountable for making crazy statements like that. Or maybe they just go like, oh, my bad. It's like, yeah, but this happened 2 years in a row. And now it's 3 years in a row. I'm not at that point. It could be bad. And if it looks this bad in October, we have the conversation. But if it just looks this bad now and maybe next week, which terrible. I have no faith that they'll beat the Chiefs.
No. I don't even want to think about that. I need 2 business days.
So I don't think it's going to start out well, but I think there's a 4-week grace period of this team is just going to crap their pants. And that's as frustrating as can possibly be. You put yourself in a hole. Luckily, I think it actually gets easier week 3 with Carolina, but I mean, let's not count the chickens before they hatch too. Let's get there and let them win the game before we say they should win that game. But I thought the Patriots team was a little bit sneaky because I thought their defense was good. It was good last year. I know they lost a couple of pieces. So that's the one part of this that you go the offense stunk, but that is at least a good defense. Now, the defense not being able to stop a bad offense, that's a different issue. They lost all 3 key matchups I wrote about. I said the wide receivers got to beat their defensive backs. Didn't happen. The defensive line has to beat their offensive line. Didn't happen. And then Josh Uche got clutch pressure. And so I assume I would give him the win on that matchup. So it stinks. And yet we've got 16 more of these to go.
We do, and there's plenty to talk about, guys who could be returning next week. So plenty with this offense and defensive side. But disappointing week 1, unfortunately, losing to the Patriots 16-10. Plenty of football, as Mike said, to go. So we'll get into the matchup versus Kansas City. And then when they get back to the practice field this week, make sure you check out Mike over on All Bengals. Follow him, Bengals_Sands over on X. You can follow me at LNDS Patterson. Thank you for listening to It's Always Game Day in Cincinnati.